Over the last couple of months I got asked a few things, but one specific question more often than anything else. How can you make your videos actually more cinematic? And in this video I'm going to tell you right now how you can actually achieve that. Cinematic. First of all, let's actually define that word so that we all know what we are actually talking about. It is the buzzword in the filmmaker YouTube community, and everyone and their grandmas are actually dying to achieve it. YouTube actually has the habit of changing definitions of words over time, such as B-roll, which now stands for flashy slow motion sequences in the YouTube context. So let's tackle the word cinematic first. What are we looking at when we talk about cinematic? And above all, you guys need to understand, there is no button you press and tada, everything is actually cinematic. So what makes footage look more filmic? What is it that makes us go, wow, this looks like a Hollywood production? Are those the black bars that you slap onto your footage? No, not really. Is it the orange and teal LUT you just bought from a famous YouTuber that you've smacked onto your footage? No, not at all. Cinematic footage is normally associated with moving images you see in high-budget productions such as movies or TV shows nowadays. It is distinctively different from the regular shows you see on TV, and you recognize the difference, but you don't know actually why. Which brings us, well, to the first point in this long list. Subscribing to this channel as well as clicking on the like button is the first step in getting your videos more cinematic. Depth of field. A lot of times most beginner filmmakers wonder how they can actually achieve this kind of blurry background. This is achieved through Aperture. The lower the number, the smaller the depth of field gets, and the more you can isolate your subject from the background. Now the only question remaining is, well, when do I need to isolate my subject from the background? And this is completely up to you and the story you are trying to tell. Is the subject lonely and feeling isolated? Then maybe a lower aperture is the right thing. Do you want to tell the background in your scene as well? Then a higher aperture number is the thing to actually go for. Light. This is the most neglected thing by beginners, even though this is the most important thing on professional sets. If you don't have access to light scrims to diffuse incoming sunlight or any kind of blackage tools, then consider shooting outdoors only in golden hour for very warm looking footage and blue hour in the mornings or evenings to get a colder, more darker look. Other than that, the best way to achieve a nice and film-like look is to control the light to its fullest. In my studio setup I can achieve that through several lights, such as my Godox SL60Ws that are propped up with two different softboxes in different diameters, as well as some accent lights like these to give me a nice glow and highlight specific things in the background. What you need to learn is how to light rooms in the best and most natural ways, and which light and what modifier is best for certain situations. Building yourself a YouTube setup and modifying over time with different lights is a great way of building knowledge in lighting. Composition. This is something that you need to spend a good amount of time into. You need to learn how to build a scene, then go actually smaller and learn how to build the next frame you are shooting. Always focus on the subject and try to bring it to the forefront, so that it becomes easier for the viewer to recognize what your story is actually about. Also, try not to pack everything into your frame. Try creating a distraction-free environment. Also, there are some simple universal design guidelines that you can actually follow that help in creating a more pleasing image to look at, such as the rule of thirds, golden ratio, and the ABBA rule, which is a simple way of letting your viewer know what to expect in the next scene. Here's an example of me leaving the frame to the left and entering the next scene, well, from the right again. This would be weird if you would have entered from the left again. It's a simple continuation thing that can help make your compositions feel more natural. Frame rates and slow motion. YouTube filmmaking consists of a lot of 120 frames per second B-roll montages that look very cool, but slow motion is not the be-all end-all when it comes to frame rates. There are certain situations where you want to slow down time to highlight actual things, and there are other situations where it is necessary to record in the overall film standard of 24 or in Europe 25 frames per second. This is in combination with the 180-degree shutter, or in other words the 2:1 shutter rule, which gives you a natural looking motion blur and is therefore pleasing to your eye. My tip would be to learn all about frame rates, where and how to actually use them correctly before you start breaking them apart. Of course, if you are not shooting for the cinema or the TV landscape and only for YouTube, then you can use 30 frames per second or even 60 as your frame rate. It is a matter of taste and you need to test it first and see if you like it or not. Me personally, I really don't like the high frame rate non-slow motion look. It looks a lot like the German soap opera trash TV to me, and to be honest, I can't stand that kind of programs. Color grading. There are two different kinds of colors in filmmaking. There is color correction, which is a part of the post-production workflow. You use it to correct the colors that came out of your, camera to make it look very natural and pleasing. You're trying to recreate reality as close as possible. And then there's actually color grading, where you try to bend the footage presented before you into your wildest dreams of mixes of colors and contrast. It's actually quite the opposite of getting a realistic image from your camera. You play around with different values to achieve something that underlines your story just through your visuals. It's the art of fooling your brain into believing that what you are actually seeing is natural and absolutely realistic. And it is an art form in itself. This isn't something you learn overnight and takes years to actually make perfect, but it is very satisfying to create the perfect image from nothing. If you color grade with LUTs and then tweak it to your preference or create everything from scratch, actually it doesn't matter in that case. It is all about the final result in the end. It is a big part of the creative process and can take some time. Here is the shot of me in my studio that I color graded to a certain extent. It has been tweaked to my different cameras and settings, and overall I'm very happy with it. And now, here is a completely different look. Weird, right? Different. Well, that's actually the power of color grading. To TLDR this. There isn't one universal thing that makes your video look more film-like. It's all about learning the craft, refining your techniques over the years and getting better at everything else. Oh, and also music does help as well, but that is a completely separate topic. So, guess what? My name was Leech and I'm off writing the next script. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see us in the next one. I'm trying to get this Game Boy to work. Hopefully it does. Until then, have a great day. Goodbye.